Sugar has been Cuba's primary agricultural crop since its Spanish colonial period. During that time, a well-to-do class of landowners accumulated large estates, called latifundios, that produced sugar, livestock, and fruit. Even after the Spanish-American War and the end of the colonial era, foreign interests, especially from the United States, owned significant tracts of land and invested large sums of money in latifundios operations. This process drove up the production of sugarcane for export, but marginalized the small-scale campesino or the peasant farmers, who focused on more diversified crops. By 1958, 73.3% of Cuba's available farming land was concentrated in the hands of just 9.4% of landowners. In 1959, the new revolutionary government introduced the first agrarian reform law as one of the first major structural changes of the revolutionary era. The law eradicated large estates, nationalized all foreign-owned rural property, where land was transferred to peasant farmers who had previously worked on it without titles, and created a state agricultural sector to maintain control of around a third of national farmland. The second agrarian reform law, introduced in 1963, further decreased the allowable size of private farms by nationalizing all property holdings over 67 hectares, thus giving the state control of around two-thirds of all national farmland. Over the decades that followed, the state gradually took ownership of more tracts of land, eventually coming to own 82% of active farmland by 1988. Accordingly, the fourth agrarian reform was initiated in 2008, where the difficult conditions for agricultural recovery in state or recently privatized lands gave rise to a growing stock of idle lands, raising the urgent need for their redistribution under usufruct conditions to new peasants, traditional peasants, and cooperatives with workforce availability. The trend shown by the evolution of the land ownership structure in the country was the historical condition for the nationalization of rural poverty, for subsequent redistribution as private, peasant or cooperative ownership. The land reforms enforced over the years had significant effect on the Cuban structure of land ownership and distribution. It provided the foundation for a fundamental transformation in the quality of life of the rural population that endures up to this day. Since 2008, 173,000 of the 194,000 Cubans who applied for land grants received land, totaling of more than 3.5 million acres. The land use rights are provided for 10 years, with the possibility of extension, as long as the applicant keeps framing the land. As the redistribution of land was enacted and considered for years, rural farmers were able to become permanent wage earners on the farms they worked at. Not only land occupancy changed, but the labor as well, and the conversion of farm workers to farm managers is the result of this shift. The considerations through land reforms and priority towards rural workers, particularly in the agricultural sector, decreased the gap of attaining progress and increased the independency in owning and farming of land. Land reforms by the government with a top-down approach and narrow administrative implementation are sometimes insufficient in addressing problems with regards to land fights. India is known to have slow and uneven execution of agrarian reform. But this one of the states who succeeded in the implementation of reformation in the country, which is the Kerala. The Kerala land reforms is viewed as perhaps the most drastic of land reform legislations in the country, has given Kerala the reputation of being the model in this respect. Every form of political activity except armed revolution took place in Kerala's land reform struggles. Land reform aims at the redistribution of land ownership in favor of the cultivating class, regulation and rationalization of rent, improving the size of farms and providing security of tenure in order to transfer in traditional agriculture and raise cultivators to new heights. Land reform also helps landless agricultural tenants in a way that it changes the agrarian structure in a way as not to obstruct but promote the growth of agriculture, and replace the old land system by a new one, free from the exploitative features which characterized the former. The formation of Kerala was, however, a major turning point of India in terms of agrarian change. Kerala's land reform is widely regarded as one of the most thorough and well implemented in South Asia. The abolition of tenancy transformed the parasitic landlord class of mostly high-caste Brahmin temple priests and rent recipients into school teachers, government administrators, and medium-sized farmers. Although some have suffered, most appear to have adjusted successfully to the loss of their giant estates and now contribute to the development of Kerala's economy.